Welcome back. Welcome. You guys can get to the bag as far as being founders. We talked about coding to storytelling, and so much, and products as well. So what we're going to discuss next is to learn how to apply design thinking principles to ed tech. Um, so Innovate to Impact is essentially going to learn how to apply design thinking principles to tech sector by creating user-centric, innovative, and impactful programming. And to speak on this, our next speaker uses her programming skills as tools to help close the education and equity gap. As a senior program manager at Webflow and the director of education and programming at Techsgiving, she continues to blend her skills of art and design to provide the youth and her peers with the tools they need to craft the future they deserve. Let's please show some love for Jara Montez.
Hello. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like we can. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here, bearing with all the internet issues and challenges. We're still here. We're still going. I think it's my presentation and then one more after this. So just want to first and foremost thank you all for coming, and super excited to have you here and see some of you in person this week. So to get started, my name is Yada. I don't know. Let's see if the slides. I can share my screen. Let's start from the beginning. There we go. All right. So my name is Yada. Thank you, Kofi, for the wonderful intro. I am going to be talking about how to build programs in EdTech that are completely centered on design thinking. So I know I just said like 18 different words, and we're going to get into all of them in a second. But this presentation, it's for everyone, but I'm specifically going to shout out people in EdTech. So my educators, my teachers, my mentors, and also some of the people who are in UX and UI design, or anyone who's done service design, really focusing on design thinking. And then I'm also going to do a big shout out to all of my program managers out there. So without further ado, I will get into it. I'm quickly going to introduce myself, and then we're going to just kind of go down the line. I'll talk about what EdTech program management is. I'll also talk about design thinking, and then I'll actually walk you through something that I built for Techsgiving that was completely rooted in design thinking. And then I'll do a quick wrap up. So, like I said, my name is Yada. It is spelled Jara, but it's pronounced Yada, like yada, yada, yada. I know it's confusing, but wanted to share that just in case anyone sees me on the streets this week. It's Yada. I am a senior program manager at Webflow, so that means I'm responsible for creating educational programming that helps students, whether that's in college or high school, or people who are taking postgraduate certifications, et cetera, learn how to build websites. Webflow is a web development company. So I build basically programs that help support students learn web development skills. Obviously, I also am part of Techsgiving. And I'm also a board member for New York Edge, which is a nonprofit in New York, which helps students with after school programming like art and STEM. On a personal level, I am originally from the Bay. So if anyone loves hyphy music, or if you are from the Bay, Yada, like Yada I mean, is always my favorite thing to share with people. But I currently live in Brooklyn. And I think one thing I want to emphasize in this whole presentation is mindset is so important in your professional and personal development. And all of these things that I have listed here as titles, etc., I think maybe even 5 years ago, I couldn't even imagine that I would be in this space. So I'll give a quick overview of my professional development, but I think I really want to hone in on this presentation that make sure when you figure out what you want to do, you stand 10 toes down and just focus on that, because that is going to get you much farther than, keeping up with the rat race and the Joneses and seeing people do all these other things. Stay in your lane, focus on what you want to do, and you're going to really thrive in that space. I know that was like a little bit of a sermon, but I promise you I will circle back to that. Okay, so let's start with EdTech program management. What is EdTech? So it is a pretty broad term, but at its core, it's really the application of tech. So whether that's software, hardware, or online platforms that facilitate or supplement the process of teaching and learning. So again, that's pretty broad. You can work at an EdTech company, which I did. I used to work at Coursera, and a lot of you might be familiar with Coursera because they are in charge of creating the Grow with Google certificates, like the project management, UX design, etc. So I used to work at an EdTech company, or you can have a specific EdTech role, which is also what I had when I used to work at Salesforce as an instructional designer, where I basically created curriculum and content to educate our internal teams on how to use Salesforce's internal tools. So it is a pretty broad space. It's not new, but I will say, especially in 2020, when literally all of education shifted to being online, it kind of blew up in that space. So if you're curious about EdTech, I will have some resources at the end, but that's sort of the space that EdTech is in. Alternatively, what is program management? And I know there are a few people, because I was a product manager, PM gets thrown around all the time. I think program management isn't as popular as everyone thinks it is, but it's basically a coordinated approach of planning an initiative that wraps up to a strategic objective. So it's really similar to project management, but instead of project management focusing on one task that is achieved, within a month or two, program management looks at project 1, project 2, project 3, and how that reaches sort of an overarching company goal. So when you put all of these together, EdTech and program management, you basically get my job, which is, like I mentioned earlier, building impactful programs to support the EdTech space. And in this case, my users, my audience are students who are interested in learning web development. So that's a brief overview of EdTech and program management as a whole. And so, like I said, these are sort of two separate buckets. One's a role, one's an industry, but my work and sort of my life goals meet in the middle. And so I really want to talk about what I mentioned earlier in terms of finding your path and carving that path. I graduated with an undergraduate degree in art because I wanted to work at Pixar. So I had literally nothing to do with any of the stuff that's on the screen right now. When I graduated, I got a job at the Warriors, like the basketball team. I was giving out chicken nugget coupon codes to people that were leaving the arena. That was my first job out of college. I thought I wanted to work in sports. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Art wasn't going to pay bills. So I was like, I got to do something. So I was doing that for a whole season. It was great. I got to see lots of players. Yes, all fun, but that wasn't exciting. And so I was really struggling with what to do with my career. And so like everybody else, I had bills to pay. I had school loans. So I got into tech in 2016, which was my first job at Salesforce. And I was like, all right, maybe this is where the money is. Maybe this is what I need to do. And it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wasn't fulfilled. It wasn't great. I was learning a lot. The people were great. I actually met my fiance at Salesforce. Like all of this was personally cool, but the content was not. And so what I was doing on the side is volunteering. So I spent like days, months, weeks working with students, really understanding their pain points, students in the Bay Area specifically, understanding their pain points, where the gaps are, what some challenges are, and how I or like broader communities can fix that and help mitigate whatever their struggles are. And so at that point, I was slowly getting into the educational space, but I just didn't know it yet. I went back to a master's in education technology, and I graduated March of 2020. And if anyone remembers what happened in March 2020, everything went online. And so it was pretty wild to see my master's degree immediately pivot into something that the world was experiencing. So that's my path. the role I have now literally did not exist when I graduated. And I just kind of kept chipping away at what I thought was interesting and, more importantly, how to help people. And that's how I got to this point. So again, carve your path and stick with it. So one thing that is really important to me is design thinking. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with this, but it is basically a framework of how you can approach problem solving like user needs. So the key points are, one, it's a creative approach. So you're really dedicating time to figuring out how to solve something. Two, it's nonlinear, which means you can go back and forth between the few phases that are involved. You don't have to follow a structured path for it. And in fact, it's actually recommended that you continue to go back and iterate being the like word of the day that so many people have mentioned. And three, and most importantly, it puts the user's needs and experiences first and make sure that you're crafting something specific to them and not just making something off of vibes. So it really does matter, because it is all at the end of the day about creating impactful resolutions that address people's challenges, instead of you just like writing something down like, well, I think this will work, and then it actually doesn't, because you haven't centered your user, you haven't listened to any of their pain points, you have no idea what's going on. So that's design thinking sort of at a high level. I'll get into the specific phases in a second. But one thing I want everyone to think about as I'm going through this is a lot of the stuff that I've shared here, you probably already are doing at some point in your role or in your interest or in your school career, whatever the case is. There are a lot of transferable skills that are here. And I think if you just take a minute to reflect at each stage as I go through it, write some notes down, see what resonates, because I really think you're going to come away with this and be like, oh, I've actually done a lot of this already. Maybe I need to either learn more about it or add this to my resume to show sort of the impact that I've made. So what I'm going to pivot into now is actually showing you a program, an EdTech program that I made that was rooted in the design thinking process. And we're going to go through step by step each phase in the design thinking process. So the first slide I'm going to show is just an overview of what the partnership was. So I actually got to partner with the King Center, which is in Atlanta, for anyone who's in Atlanta. They reached out, and their goal essentially was just to help create an online program for their entrepreneur cohort. So this is working with a bunch of middle and high school students who are sort of in this cohort of like business and tech, and they reached out because they just wanted us to help and build a program for that. So as a program manager, my responsibilities for this were, one, the strategy and planning. So like, what can we do? How can we do it? The curriculum design, actually building out whatever that curriculum would look like for their cohort, and then the facilitation. So actually teaching this cohort. I'm going to focus on the first two in the design thinking phase, because that's really where those things shine the most. So first step in the design thinking phase is empathize. So as you can kind of probably tell from the title, it really is focusing on understanding user needs. And this typically happens through interviews, observations, etc. I don't think this concept is new for anyone. I'm pretty sure you've all done it before. There's 18 million types of words for this. There's like a needs assessment. For the UX people, it's like building your user personas, etc. So again, keep thinking about things that you've already done as I'm walking through this. But as it relates to the King Center, this is a pretty broad sentence, but the King Center simply wanted to introduce students to beneficial use cases of technology. So that sounds great, but it's pretty broad and I wasn't too clear of what that actually meant for them. They did have a few challenges. They didn't want this program to be too technical or requiring a steep learning curve. It had to be completed in a week. That's how long their session was. And they were also a little hazy on how to actually incorporate some of the King Center mission and values into the program. So I learned all of this through back and forth interviews, listening to what they've done in the past, what worked, what didn't work, engaging with their staff members, etc. So this was this was and is the first thing that I always do when I start a program, is understand what the gaps are, because you can't build something to help someone if you don't know what you're helping them for. So that's step one, is empathize. The second piece is define, which is basically clearly indicating and identifying the main problem that you want to solve. And I added solved based on insights because you should be referring to the empathize phase, your user interviews, etc., to really get a clearer picture of what the problem should be that you're solving. So after my discussions with the King Center staff, we landed on how can we use technology to help students positively impact their community. So that's still kind of broad, but better than what it was before, which was like, we would like to just broadly introduce people to technology. So we were able to narrow it down. Here's the problem we're solving. We phrased it as a how might we statement. And from there, we could actually start working on our build. Again, this is a really important stage in this design thinking process, because again, you have to know what you're creating and building for. And the define process clearly states what that is. So next is my favorite stage, which is ideate. So this is basically where the creative problem solving approach comes in, where you are finding solutions to the defined problem. And when I say finding solutions, I mean finding them all. Typically, and in school, we've always been taught, here's a problem, here's one solution, and that's sort of it. With design thinking, the creativity comes in because you have to sit here, and I sat there for 30 minutes just churning out things. Some of them made sense, a lot of them did not make sense, but I categorized them, I starred some of them, I just kept going, because once you start putting all of that sort of brain dump on the paper, it helps to start find themes, or maybe see, okay, that's probably not going to work, but maybe this could work. It's better than just only focusing on one problem, because that's not going to help anyone. And it's sort of the easy way out, essentially. So based on my brainstorming, I landed on a solution where I could facilitate an intro to UX design class. So that was what I thought was going to be the best way to solve the problem. And so once I found out the best way to solve it, I had to actually build it. And so that's where prototyping comes in. And again, all my UX UI people, you're probably perking up because you're definitely familiar with this. But prototyping is actually where you are building off of one of your ideas in the previous phase. So this is a tangible product. It's not an idea. It's like, here is a possible resolution to this. So my prototype, after I narrowed some of the ideas down, was a sample lesson plan, which I took a screenshot of here, and creating educational content to teach the UX design class. So that was it. Those are my prototypes. I had them ready to send, like people were viewing them. I think that's a key point in prototype. It's like, no vibes. You actually have to create something. For people who are in like product design or other things like that, that might be an actual sort of form of what they're building to. It can be half-baked because you still want to iterate and test, but it still needs to be a tangible thing that people can actually interact with. So once I created the lesson plan and the educational content, that is where I actually went and tested it. So I tested it with the King Center staff first because I wanted to get their opinion. Excuse me, this was a new concept to them as well. So I thought it would be a great way to sort of test the audience to see if people really understood what UX design was. But during the trial, I quickly realized that this wasn't actually solving the goal that we set up initially. I wasn't helping the students build. I wasn't helping them impact their community. I was just telling them information and praying that they received that and that it resonated and that they were able to retain all of that. And so it was during this test phase when I realized, yeah, this isn't working. This isn't right. So what did we do? We went back to prototype. And so this is first and foremost a highlight of the nonlinear piece of design thinking, because while I did go over a few phases, I just went back to one because I went back to the drawing board after seeing the first one was just not going to cut it. So went back to my little ideate phase where I had all those sticky notes and I was like, okay, we need to think of something a bit better. So I narrowed the focus down even more and I landed on my prototype being educational content on how to build a prototype in Figma. That was super specific, literally had the word build in it. So the students were going to be building in Figma, which was technology, and they were going to create a prototype that was going to impact their community and their space for the better. That was the goal. And I'm proud to say that is actually what happened. So what you're seeing here is a few screenshots of some of the work the students at the King Center did during our session. So the top left, that was their ideate phase where they all put in ideas that they had for ways that they can impact their community for the better. The second one is a user persona that they created. Third is a lo-fi wireframe that they built. And then the final one is actually a full mock-up, full prototype, in Figma. And for anyone who has used Figma before, you know that all of these dots and arrows, etc., those are actually guides so that you can show a clickable prototype in Figma. It's super cool. And so the students were ecstatic, to say the least. They built incredible apps to help their community. A lot were centered in mental health for high school students, trying to mitigate the homelessness challenges that were in Atlanta. There's also a gas app, which I love because they were saying their parents drive around for like 20 minutes to find gas and they just want to go home. And so someone was like, we need to build a gas app for our parents because I don't want to be stuck in the car with them any longer than I need to. So these are just a few examples of what they were able to create, excuse me, when they built the Figma prototype based on design thinking. So to this point, we have actually implemented this program across a wide variety of spaces, actually taught in person and did this in New York, which is the screenshots you're seeing here. We have reached over 100 students in terms of people we've connected with. And another iteration of this program that we implemented, we actually had the students build up functioning websites in Webflow, which was, another iterate word of the day. But it was great because they were able to take some of the prototypes that they built in the first phase of this and actually build a website so that they could share it with their family and friends, and links, etc. Like all of that was completely working and functioning. So in conclusion, design thinking can really help your program and ultimately the resolution be user-centric, which is a goal that everyone claims to have, but not everyone does have. Like if you actually think about what your favorite product is and like go through the user experience, you can quickly tell like which apps or services, etc., really focus on users versus those that don't. Like the DMV does not, like just off rip. Whereas others, like maybe Spotify or something like that, have a great user experience. Second piece, don't be afraid to go back and try again. As you saw, I went back one time for this program, but in other programs that I've launched, I've gone back like 5 times, sometimes 10 times, because it always is centered on the user feedback during the testing phase and seeing what their feedback is. And the last thing, and most important to me, is the most impactful solutions are made when you listen to and then build for your user. Some people listen, but then they don't actually build. And some people build without listening. And then again, my biggest nightmare, which I hate, is just building things off of vibes, because that's not real and that won't impact anyone. So if you take nothing away from this presentation, it's when you are creating a product or service for someone, make sure you listen to and build for. I think those are really key components there. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Again, my name is Yada, and all of my info is here. Hit me up on LinkedIn, Twitter, email, whatever works for you. Would love to connect with all of you, especially those in the ed tech space or those honestly who are just like career transitioning, because I have had many lives in my career. But I want to share two quick resources. The first is a website I made called the Program Playground, where program managers can go to learn how to build a program from the ground up. I implement a lot of design thinking process into this website. So if you are curious about being a program manager or just kind of like want to build your own, possibly, this is a great website and a great resource to do that. And then for anyone who is interested in ed tech, learning more, connecting with more ed tech folks, myself and my dear friend Jasmine, we launched a Discord channel, Discord community for people who are interested in ed tech called the Lunchbox Community. So with that, thank you all. I think we have a few minutes for questions, and I can stop sharing my screen as well and come back to the stage.
All right. You did a phenomenal job out there.
Thank you.
How you feeling?
Oh, I feel great. I think it's always cool to step back out of your work and like see what you kind of have created, especially when students are involved, because I think this is another thing. This is a hill I'll die on. Everyone discredits the youth, and I just want to say they are incredible. You need to give them an opportunity to be so. It's never about capacity, how smart they are, et cetera. It's like, give them an opportunity, they'll run with it. And so it was incredible to see what they were able to create in a week. I had just showed them how to use Figma, and they built an entire prototype to help their community. Like, my work here is done. Yeah.
No, I love that, and I love what you're doing for the youth. I'm hella inspired. I want to know what way I can get more for real. But I think you hit it on the head. It's like the youth, they're not lazy. It's not that they don't like math or they don't like school. I know me personally as a youth, I was always looking like, how is this going to impact people? And I feel like when you put something in their hands that they're like, okay, I can see how this can impact people, how it can impact my local community or the world, and they're ready to do the work. And I mean, clearly you have the proof in the pudding. So shout out to you for continuing to do that work.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm gonna see if there's any questions in the chat. Got some time for questions, y'all. So please ask y'all the questions. You just getting a lot of thank yous, getting hella claps.
Thanks, guys. Here's the link again to here. Let me send the Program Playground link.
I'll put it in there again. Let me see.
Thank you. Perfect.
I got you. No thing. I guess what, if any, what has been one of your struggles when trying to do this work with the youth?
Let's see. I think to be honest, all the struggles are purely like bureaucratic logistics, red tape, etc. Like it's never really the students. Like sure, like sometimes they can be like disruptive or like start talking about things I literally have no idea about. I feel so old sometimes when I'm talking with them, but that's like never the issue. It's always like people saying, oh no, like that's too complex to introduce to them, like don't do that, or like we only have X amount of time, like we're not gonna have enough time to go into that at all, so like maybe don't step into that space. It's a lot of guardrails that adults are putting up. Maybe they're projecting, I'm not sure, but this is what I mean, where it's it's not giving a student an opportunity to even see, like you need to be exposed to things in order to understand how they work, and if you want to be involved in that, and when you're already proactively telling people that they can't do that, then what can the rest of us do? So
for sure. And how do you like overcome that and help them to allow the students to do these things?
I mean, this is like maybe like older sister vibes of me, but like I'm very bullish on all of this. I'll like keep going. I'm like, no, this has to happen. It has to happen right now. So like put up or I don't want to say shut up, but like basically, because it's like I'm here to help expose the students to these things and enrich their just sort of like imagination, experiences, etc. And I feel like as I don't want to really get into my like rant mode, but I think you just have to be bullish and you have to push down those doors, break down those doors, and make sure that your audience is getting what they need, whether it's students, whether it's anyone else, because you were put on this earth to do something, and if that's what you need to do, then you need to find a way to do that.
I hear that. I hear that. Ain't nothing wrong with being an advocate.
Yeah.
It ain't bullish. It's advocating.
Yes.
All right. So you have a question here. It said, "Thank you so much for amazing work. That as someone that has transitioned from multiple types of workspaces, what has been your most useful tool in networking in these new spaces?" I like that.
Yeah. So it was really hard for me at first. I would consider myself pretty introverted. I don't really like going to networking events except for Techsgiving stuff. So it was really hard to like find a way to get into that space. But I basically sat down with myself and I was like, here's what I'd like to do. Here's where I'm at. Here's a gap here. I have to solve it. And so I would join online forums. Those were like much easier for me to kind of break through and start connecting with people. And then I would start researching people on LinkedIn, seeing what their roles were, seeing if that aligned with what I was doing, and then reach out. I know everyone's like, oh, cringe, that's so awkward. I don't want to message people on LinkedIn. But I promise you, if you are engaged and like are actually curious about learning, more than likely people are going to help. A lot of people that I see in this chat, I have actually connected with, whether it's through Baddies in Tech chats, Discord channels, LinkedIn. Like I have made connections already with people in this chat. So I think you just need to sort of be open, research people, get an understanding of what sort of those roles are, what those skills are, and really carve out your path from that.
All right. So I think you kind of answered that question. This question about what would you say helped you the most? I maybe haven't. What would you say has helped you the most amidst you navigating your career path?
Purely internal conversation. Like I have had so many conversations with myself. I'm probably still having one right now, and I'm like checking it out because I'm focused on you all. But it's like really making sure you understand what you want to do and how you want to do it. I feel like I had gone back to the drawing board so many times, but it's the self-conviction to be like, I want to do this, so I need to find a way to do that. Related, advocating for yourself in your roles. So when I was at Salesforce, I was actually in a technical, like highly technical support space. And like I mentioned, it wasn't the most fulfilling space for me. And so communicating with my manager, like, I'm really interested in this type of stuff. And so I got to work on education and onboarding new hires. So that wasn't a new role, but it was a new task that I could do to add to my resume, but also see if I was interested in that. So communicating once you have a plan to other people what you were looking to do and get into.
Yeah, that's so important. And I feel like sometimes we're just like, all right, this is my job, I'm gonna do my job. But it's a free space to learn, to get paid to learn, honestly. So
Exactly.
No matter where you're at, you can, create those opportunities for yourself. What are some transferable skills that someone with a teaching background can highlight when transitioning to a program manager role in ed tech? I think that's a great question.
Yes, this is an incredible question. And just like, first and foremost, shout out to the teachers, the educators, etc. I think a lot of teachers and educators underestimate the transferable skills that they bring to this table. Like, first and foremost, y'all have managed classrooms of children. Like, do you know how hard that is? Like, there are people that I work with that are in tech, etc., that just sit at their computer all day and don't have to do any of the work that you all have done. So just one, praise to that. Two, don't underestimate yourself. Some of the transferable skills are project management. Like I mentioned, just the general day-to-day organization and execution of specific tasks. Communication is a huge one. You are not only communicating with students, which is like pretty obvious to a lot of people, but you're communicating to your admin, like principal, school and district level, and you're communicating to parents, which is another challenge in and of itself. So just communication, cross-functional collaboration is something that you should definitely highlight as a teacher and educator as well. And then some of the more obvious things like curriculum design, especially if you're interested in getting into the ed tech program management space, curriculum or instructional design, as well as any of the small or side projects that you all have had to do. Because as we know, teachers are doing 80 million things and getting paid for -5 of those. So all of those small projects that you did, like think about what I just shared in the design thinking process and be like, I can apply this to what I've done. Like if you've helped X student get from a D to an A, what did you do? How did that work? Make that a project that you highlight on your resume or your LinkedIn. There's a lot.
You answered that well. So when they get those, they have transferable skills. What is something like tech-based you think they should add to their skill set in order to like be the full package?
Yeah, it really depends on sort of the role that they are looking into. I think from my experience on LinkedIn conversations, a lot of teachers are most interested in project management, UX, and customer success. A lot find success in the customer facing roles where they're really engaging with the end user and helping them sort of like onboard to the process. Then there's project management. Like I said, you will probably have to carve your resume and be like very intentional with how you are framing your project management on your resume. But there are definitely skills that can be highlighted. And similar for UX design, UX design is a very specific industry that does require a lot of background experience as well as sort of education. But there's no reason that as a teacher you wouldn't be able to transition into the UX design space. I think it would just sort of take more time and more, again, crafting projects as well as your resume.
Cool. So someone asks, how do you overcome some of the challenges when cross collaborating, whether for students or you're not a job?
Yeah, I think when there's issues with cross collaboration, that obviously impacts the program or the launch dates or whatever the deliverables are. And so I think the first thing I do is always like connect with whatever the roadblock is, whether it's a person or a team or whatever the case is, and really understand, okay, what actually is the issue here? Because it could be a miscommunication, it could be like a lack of resources. I won't know until I'm actually having a conversation instead of assuming like this person's whack, I hate working with him, like let's find another person to work with. Once you communicate and again, it's sort of empathize with whatever the roadblock is, from there you can make up for the delays and find alternatives, iterate, build again. It really is, like I've always said, boils down to understanding X, whether that's your user, your teammate, etc.
Understanding the person as a whole. I think we have time for one more question, but I think we might have answered all the questions in the chat. Okay.
No, I was gonna say, I love that. I love efficiency.
Yeah, we it out looking. So I guess, do you have any last words you want to say to the people?
Yeah, I mean, I will follow up with all of the links that I see people talking about in the chat, especially for the lunchbox. Happy to help with that.
Yeah.
But most importantly, I am here to talk. I know I covered a lot, and if you are interested, happy to help. But remember, just like 1, listen to and build for your user, and 3, carve your path. It might take years. That's okay. Like if you are committed to that, that's all that matters. So that is all I have to say.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you later today.
Yeah.
For sure.
Bye.
All right, y'all. Well, you have made it. First off, please, let's get some claps in the chat for Yada real quick. Please get some claps in the chat for Yada. She's gonna address the lunchbox question. And then y'all, the Discord, we're gonna put that into the chat as well. We want y'all to definitely join the Discord. We want y'all to participate in our Discord to Departure Challenge. And you have to join the Discord to find out more about that. But it offers you free flights, free round trip flight for 2. So you might want to join Techsgiving Discord. The Discord link is going to be dropped in just a few moments. The Techsgiving team is going to drop that link. Once again, you all have made it to the final workshop of the day. And I'll give you all a few announcements at the end, but we look forward to seeing y'all this evening. We're going to have our welcome event at the Cambria Hotel. If you need an address for that, we can also put that in the chat for you as well. But please make sure you RSVP. And then we look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. But right now, we're going to jump into a subject, and I feel like it's very timely for us to end on this subject. How many people in the chat have people who got laid off during the tech freeze or the tech slowdown? I can say for a fact that I have friends who got laid off during the freeze, got laid off during the slowdown, and are still being affected today. They, have been looking for full-time opportunities in tech for about a year now, but I think things are beginning to round out. The person that's going to come and speak today, I really admire how she turned her setback, because she was affected by this, into a comeback. She became a master of turning a setback into a comeback, a master of taking your loss and turning that into, taking your lemons and turning that into lemon juice. So I just want to make sure that you guys tap in with her in just a few moments. So this panel, no surprise, is going to be called Turning Setbacks into Comebacks, Post-Layoff Strategies for Success. So you can turn your layoff into a comeback. And our speaker is hailing from Queens, standing at the intersections of tech, Black culture, and equality. Our next guest is dedicated to lifting others up as she climbs. Currently a senior software engineer at Bloomberg and the director of social engagement at Techsgiving, she takes the skills and knowledge that she gains at work and in the world and uses them to help provide people that look like you and me the advice we need to thrive in the tech industry. Let's please show some love for Genesis Bonds. All right, she should be coming up in just a moment here. Okay, so Genesis will be coming up in just a few moments. So while we wait, I'm going to give y'all a little rundown of what to expect for the rest of the weekend. We have the Techsgiving tonight. We're going to have a welcome reception at the Cambria Hotel. That's going to start at 7 o'clock, and that's going to be 7 to 11. Then after that, if y'all gonna party late night, then we have the Afrobeat after hours at the Rose Bar. But just make sure you're up bright and early to show up and meet us for the sessions tomorrow, if you are coming to tomorrow's sessions. Now, tomorrow's sessions are going to be at Audi Field. We're going to start our sessions at 10 o'clock. Please start arriving around 9:30 for check-in and to begin networking. And then if you don't want to miss the vibes of DJ Yana Jones, make sure y'all arrive early as well. So we're going to have a day full of workshops. And those are going to end at 4:30. And then after that, we are going to have some time with Poetry Me Please. So Poetry Me Please, if y'all have not heard about that, is a platform where one of the workshops speakers, Rashawn Brown, he created it, and he brings a group of people together to do poetry. It's one of the biggest platforms for poetry in this world, and y'all definitely want to tap in and check that out. That's going to be tomorrow evening, and that will be at, I believe, 6 p.m. And that's going to be our happy hour for tomorrow evening as well. And then once again, if you're there for the late night vibes after a day full of working on yourself and building yourselves up, then go ahead to the R&B party after hours, and that's going to be from 10 p.m. until on Thursday. Then Friday, that's the big day. So Friday, we got a big day. We're going to have some opening remarks starting around 9 o'clock. And then we're going to be going all the way till about 5:15. And then after that, we have our Black Gov Tech Gala. And then we have the official closing after party powered by Sold Out Dates and Render ATL. So that's going to be from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. on Friday. Definitely looking forward to seeing y'all there. Let me know if y'all have any questions on these as I continue to go through them. And then on Sunday, once again, as me and Ayo talked about earlier today, we're going to have our Day of Giving. Our Day of Giving is going to be at 10 a.m. And that is going to be at the Gathering Spot. And that will be powered by Amazon. And I want you guys to definitely tap in for that. So the Day of Giving, we just ask for y'all to, if you can come physically, bring a keyboard. If you can bring a laptop, bring a laptop. Bring whatever technological item that you can, technical item that you can to donate, because we help empower you with that. So please bring it together. So if you can't bring together, we have a link to donate as well. After we do our service, then we brunch. So we have our farewell brunch that's going to be from 12 o'clock to 4 p.m. And then we're going to have our farewell day party. How do we use that? Will the sessions be virtual tomorrow? All right. So no, Victor, this is not the workshop. The workshop is going to start in a few moments. The Wi-Fi has been trying to be in the way with us today, but the technical difficulties, we will continue to overcome them. We are going to get started with this session in just a moment. That is going to be turning your setbacks into comebacks. So that session will be coming up in just a few moments. But right now, I'm just giving you guys an overview as we wait for what's to come for the rest of this week, the Techsgiving summit. Next question. Will there be virtual sessions tomorrow? Let me just ask this text in the chat real quick. I'll get back to you with that answer in just a moment. Let me see. All right, so I'm gonna get back to you with that answer, Roxanne. I promise you, I'll let y'all know if tomorrow's sessions are virtual. I know that for sure Friday's sessions are virtual, but I just don't want to give you any false, answers. So I'm gonna ask, as a team and make sure. How do we use the expo functionality online? Let me just double check real quick. So I'll get back to you with that answer as well as how to use the expo functionality online. One moment.